Okay, I think we're live.
You think? Are you sure?
Well, it says we're live.
Let's go with what the machine says.
This is my first live, so I'm going with what the machine says.
Perfect. First live for me as well.
So, first things first, thank you very much, Jan, for joining my very first live.
Well, my pleasure. Plus, it's my first live, so if something goes wrong,
It's
we're
both our
both we're
fault.
both to
Yeah.
blame.
So far so good. So what we're gonna do is, I don't know, I don't see how many viewers there are yet, so probably just a couple, but it should pop up soon. So we'll give the instructions maybe for the live a little bit later when there's more people.
Yeah, for sure.
And if people are watching
Let me
it,
see. Can I do this? You think? Wow. Science. Oh, that's better.
there you
Feels like
go.
my eyes are looking more at you than it is on the side because the camera's right there.
Perfect. So for those that are watching it afterwards, because it will be posted tomorrow, for those people, if they have any questions, they can write them in the comments of the video below in either English or French, anglais ou français, and we'll respond to those in the comments.
It's a good way to learn
So
a new language at the same time.
also, yeah, or Italian. I can answer them in Italian as
Oh
well.
yeah, I
So.
can't do I can't do Italian.
So today we have very important stuff to discuss, a lot of things to discuss.
Very
And I
important.
and I know that we could probably talk for hours, but we're going to stick to three topics. So, topic number 1, your lifestyles of the rich and famous as a tour manager, and what people need to know about joining a guided tour. So that'll be
Yes.
topic number 1. Number 2, your new reality TV show. So Expédition Blizzard,
Yeah.
Expedition Blizzard.
I mean,
So we're,
it's not just my show. It's not my show. I'm on it, but yeah,
well,
for the
you're
sake of
one
it,
of the stars of the
yeah, okay.
show.
I'll
So
take
we're
that.
lucky because we're catching you now before the worldwide fame hits.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
this is it. Okay. And towards the end, we're gonna look at your diving with the sharks videos because I watched a couple of them. And normally, when I go on one of my trips, I try to avoid going in the ocean that's full of sharks, but you actually pay to go in there. So
Yeah,
we'll do that as well.
yeah. It's a good way of saying it. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll just let you introduce yourself, and then we can start with the questions and discussion.
All right. Well, like you said, my name is Yan. My job is a tour manager, which is basically a tour guide that doesn't guide in only one city. Because if you are a tourist and you go to Montreal, you can go downtown Montreal or even book online a tour guide that's going to take you around the city, showing you the landmarks, showing you the history buildings, talking to you about the customs and this and that. Most likely is for one city, which is great because then you get a specific guide that knows specific thing about a specific place, which is always good. My job is a little different in the fact that I don't stick around. I move around every night. So
Okay.
I take people that have booked a tour. We travel by bus, and once the reception is done at the airport, let's say there's 40 guests. So I take those 40 people on every city that's on the tour, and we travel together for 2 weeks, almost like a tour band, so it's up on the bus, back on the out the bus, go to Vegas, back on the bus, go to Calico, back on the bus. So it's a lot of logistic. So I know a lot about a lot of places, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert in any of them yet. Not
Okay.
yet.
So that's the difference between a tour guide and a tour manager. A tour guide is only in one location
Well, the
in
tour
general.
guide will guide you through the city, let's say,
Right.
but you'll say bye bye after 3 hours, and the tour guide will probably take another group, and then you'll be heading back to your hotel or back to your tour group. What happens is that on top of touring cities and places with the people, I also have to take care of the logistic of checking in all those people at the hotel, making sure our reservations at the restaurants throughout the 2 weeks are set and booked. Double check for anything that can happen, like a flat tire on the bus, a room that's missing, or let's say a room that's not quite up to par. It's not clean, let's say, when you get there. So I make all those arrangements for the guests so that they don't have to deal. Plus, most of them don't speak English that well.
Right.
So it's hard for them in the United States, let's say, to go to the front desk. I mean, everyone can do it. When you travel by yourself, you do it. But I'm kind of like the in-betweener, you know. They'll tell me, oh, my room, you know, I'm missing towels. I'm going to go to the front desk and say, room 26, room 27, room 35, missing towels. And then so I just make sure that they don't have to do as much as they would if they were traveling by themselves.
Okay. So I was going to ask you that, like, when you stop in each city, do you then see the places, like, are you the guide of each location for them, or also, so you
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
kind of guide them around in each place?
So what happens is we have a circuit to follow. The circuit
Yeah.
is listed. I get one every beginning of every tour. It says which restaurant we're going to be having lunch at today, which restaurant we're having dinner, what's the activities in between, what time we should be there. And plus, because we're traveling by bus, you have to take into account all the mileage between those places. So to make sure you get there on time. But let's say we get to Vegas, for example. We go to the hotel, we drop everything there, and then afterwards I usually do maybe a little meet and greet in the lobby or something with everyone to give them a little bit of an idea of what's around the hotel, which way to go if they want to see the strip right away, if they want to see the Bellagio instead. So I need to know my way around in each of those places, a
Right.
minimum, so that the main attractions, they can get to them easily. But I do a night by night tour in Vegas where we tour at night with the bus. We do 5 or 6 stops. That would be probably a little long to do on foot.
Right.
When we walk through New York, same thing. We usually arrive through. We take the ferry from Staten Island, and then we start New York at the southern tip of New York in Manhattan, in the financial district.
Yeah.
And as we walk, I give them information about what we're seeing, about history, dates. We passed by the 9/11 memorial, and then sometimes I tour with kids and they have no idea what 9/11 is. I mean,
Right.
they learn it in school, but
Yeah.
it's not like they were there when it happened. So you
Yeah.
have to make sure that as kids they understand the gravity of it without taking all the fun out of a tour.
Right.
So it's a nice balance between giving information and making sure that the customers are still also having a vacation, you know.
Right.
But if you take a tour group like that, you expect information. You know, you do
Right.
it because you want a little more without having maybe to do
Yeah.
the research by yourself.
So this is a good option also for like people who haven't traveled much, right? Like you get to see a lot in 2 weeks. You don't have to worry about how to get from point A to point B. You don't even have to worry about meeting up with a guide. It's basically all in one.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to make sure you're not going to, sorry, if you're not going to miss out on something important in a certain area, touring with the group makes sure that you're going to see all that is on the listing.
Right.
When you travel by yourself, it's fun, it's an adventure, but you might not know all the distances and the timing between there and there. So you might miss out because you were late or because you got lost. Getting
Right.
lost also is a problem. If you don't know the way around and you're in the desert and you take the wrong exit, that's the difference between an extra hour of driving or an extra 4 hours driving.
Right. And you
So
do this as you're sort of a private contractor, like you're not employed by company X. You're
exactly. Well,
right.
I mean, I work with different agencies,
Mhm.
so they have my profile, they have my pedigree, they know where I've been. It's a small world too, so bosses
Right.
from different agency will often call each other to ask, you know about this guy, Yan? He applied here. Can you tell, have you worked with him before? Yes, yes, blah, blah, blah. So after that, whenever an agency has a slot to fill, they can call me. And then with the dates and the area they want to send me in, I can say yes or no, depending on if I want to do it, if I can do it, you
Hmm.
know, sometime overlapping happens. So if like, let's say I'm booked on a tour and then a teacher asks for me personally with another agency to tour with their kids and it overlaps, then you have to make a choice. You know,
Right.
it's either the
Because
money
you're
that
gone
wins
like
or
you're gone a lot. Like I see it on your Facebook, like you're gone a lot. So first of all, that means the customers must like you because or they wouldn't call you back. But
hopefully,
you're
hopefully.
but you're gone like long periods of time. Like sometimes you're gone for months, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the season, it's a little slower. So sometimes I'll do like a 4 day tour with the teenage group, then come back for 3, 4 days, then have a 2 week tour in Quebec with adults, then come back, then have 2 weeks home, and then be gone for a month on the west coast of the USA.
Right.
So I haven't really calculated yet how many days I've spent in my apartment in Montreal versus the amount of days I wasn't. But let's just say that between May and November, I
You're
would say
gone.
I've been home maybe like 3 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay, cool.
yeah.
So is there anything like someone that's thinking of booking a guided tour like that, right? What do they need to know? Like, what should they know? What should they be aware of before booking it?
Well, I would say, I mean, it is a new job for me, but I feel like over the last season, I've learned quite a bit about what people expect because I work with different groups. They're never the
Mm.
same. And whenever I say bye to a group of 50, there's a good chance I'll never see them again in my entire
Right.
life. So it's a little heartbreaking sometimes with some guests because you get attached
Well,
and they're
yeah,
nice and oh, light hazard.
I'm not
It's
the only one with lighting
no.
problems.
Let me see what I can do about that. Can I do both? Oh my god, technology, huh? Hold on, I'll be right back. They're supposed to be smart bulbs, huh? But
So maybe just for the people who are on, if you want to submit a question or a comment, you can do so. And you need to be subscribed to my channel, ready to go, in order to submit comments or questions. I see Alexandra, very exciting, another world traveler here in the chat. I see Joanne. Hi, Joanne. And I see Ricardo. So we have already some questions. So as
really,
soon as, yes, as soon as we see you again,
I know. Let me give me a second. The lamp is having a little problem, so hopefully you can still see me a bit for now. Otherwise, I'll go to the kitchen.
yeah,
I can
maybe,
move the frame.
or, yeah, okay. Okay, so in the meantime, I'll read Ricardo's question. Ricardo's asking, what are the costs for such tours on average, and how many people minimum are required for a tour to start?
Okay, well, for the prices, it really depends on where you're leaving from. Most of my guests who travel with me, with the agencies I work with, they're from France. So they leave Paris Charles de Gaulle. No matter where they are in France, they all meet in Paris Charles de Gaulle. And then they fly to Toronto or Los Angeles, where I'll be waiting for them. So it really depends. Each customer on the bus didn't pay the same price because they're
Ah,
not
okay.
leaving from the same place. But you have to take into account that it is almost like an all inclusive. The meals are included for most of the tour. Sometimes we have free times. We have you can go wherever you want. But the meals and the hotels are all booked in advance. You get me or someone like me to help you out throughout the whole thing. So they're not cheap.
Right.
They're
So you
not
have to
cheap
think
tours.
it's like an all-inclusive vacation plus transportation plus having like a guide with you at all times.
Yeah. So
So,
I would say that the average for my customers would be around 3,000 euros for a 2-week trip in the United States.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense.
So it is expensive, but everything went up after COVID.
Yeah.
Um, all the rooms, all the meals, all the restaurants, the price of gas, just the
It's
bus.
actually not even that bad because I think like we paid like $1,600 per plane ticket just for the plane ticket to go to Italy this past summer. So,
Yeah,
you know what? It's not bad when you think
I
of it
know.
that way, you know?
And most of my customers, they don't know each other when they get on the bus.
Right.
So the agency, let's say you go through a travel agency wherever you are, and you say we're interested in booking a tour on a bus to do this kind of trip. You can pre-reserve your spot with giving a little deposit or something, and when the company feels like there's enough people to send at the same time, then they'll tell you, okay, so the trip is working. We're leaving in 3 months.
Okay.
So one bus contains about 50 guests. That's quite a lot when you're doing a tour group,
50
because it's
guests, one tour manager. Okay.
yeah. So and 50 guests, most likely all couples.
Yeah.
So 25 couples that
Okay.
are all expecting different things. They're all going for different reasons. So they're not always going just to see. Some of them are very passionate about seeing the Grand Canyon, and for them, it's the most important part of the trip. Others don't care about the Grand Canyon. They just want to see Vegas and San Francisco.
Right.
So you have to make sure that these people get what they want without really modifying too much from the program, because you're still catering to 48 other people.
Right. Okay. I'm going to go to Alexandra's question. When did you start your career as a tour manager? And maybe she's asking because she may want to do the same thing. Who knows?
Well, I started officially in 2023, this year. So March. I was working in the service industry before that for 20 years, high-end restaurants and all. Got tired, got a little less enthused about the work. So I joined a agency. I got trained in the USA. So I left on a tour with a guy that was already been there for many, many times. So I could look at what he was doing, how he was doing it, why he was doing it this way. And after one tour, 2 weeks, I was let loose on the world, and I started touring. So it's kind of something you can study for it. I mean, you can go into. I know there's universities and CJETs who offer programs in
Mm.
tourism. I skedaddled my way in.
Well, you're a natural born performer as well. So,
Well, I
there is that.
believe it. But
Yeah.
also, I mean, working in the service industry, it helps too. It's the same kind of like qualities you need. Uh,
Yeah.
Customer service. Basically, it comes down to customer service. But instead of serving them for 2 hours, you serve them for 2 weeks in a row.
Right. Okay, cool. So, Joanne's question now, do you only do guided trips in the US?
Good question. For now, I'm doing Canada and US. So when I go to the US, I have two circuits that I'm trained on. There are more circuits available, but since I'm the rookie, I don't get first bid on all the contracts.
Right.
So for now, for this year, I focused on doing Western USA, and that includes California, Utah, Nevada, and Arizona.
Yeah, that one
And
looks really cool, like all through the desert and yeah, that one looks
it
very interesting.
it's the hardest one, I feel, because the sheer distance between the spots you want to go to is huge, and anything can happen in between those two
Right.
spots. So it is a bit more complex. The other tour I do in the US is the East Coast. So we start in Toronto, we do Toronto, Niagara Falls, and then straight away we go down towards where do we start? We start with Philadelphia, then we do Washington, Boston, New York. So this, I mean, it's not the whole coast,
Right.
because the USA is huge, but it is a good part of the eastern most important cities. Um, and I also do tours in Canada, so eastern Canada, so from Toronto all the way to Tadoussac. going towards Gaspésie, but not quite yet.
Yeah. But you also do tours for youth groups, right? Like younger
Yeah, yeah.
groups?
Actually, I just funny because I just got an email today from that agency saying, okay, so some people have started requesting some of you guys, so please fill
Mm,
out the availability sheet. These tours are fun because they're quick. It's usually 3 nights, 4 days, or 2 nights, 3 days. So they're really quick in and out, but they're with teenagers or preteens.
right.
And usually we only focus on one city with those tours because it's too complicated otherwise. But let's say we take them to New York for a weekend, or we take them to Boston, which I love. We did also Washington with the kids. Toronto, Niagara Falls, always a big favorite. Uh, it depends on the budget of every school, obviously. If if an area is not as wealthy and they want to do a trip, sometimes they can't send them all to New York.
Right.
So we go to Toronto instead, which is great because I lived there for 12 years. So I love the city. It's like the New York of Canada, anyway. Uh,
But
but yeah,
is
we do.
Montreal better?
Uh, well, I would not have
Well,
stayed
okay,
there
okay.
for.
In what ways is each city better than the other? That's a more fair question.
Okay, well, Montreal is smaller, so it's easier to get around. You
Yeah.
know, you take the subway, you're there in 15 minutes. You take a cab, you're there under $15. Toronto's just more vast. Takes longer to get from point A to point B. Um, the lifestyle, I would say, I prefer Montreal's lifestyle. It's just a little more European in the air.
Yeah.
It's more casual, less less busy in a hurry. Toronto's very business. So, but
People
it
make
got,
more money there.
but you know that
Yeah.
old say, yeah. Well, there is a lot of money in Toronto, but
Yeah.
everything costs double.
Yeah.
Like an apartment like I have here would be like 3 grand in Toronto.
Right.
So
Okay.
depends.
So, question, what is the strangest or weirdest thing that's ever happened to you on one of your tours? Keep in
Wow.
mind, YouTube has censorship rules.
No, no, no. uh, well, I mean, it's not funny, but one night I had to deal with a kid who had a seizure
Oh,
in
okay.
a room. So the kids, I mean, they're all kids. They're sharing bedrooms in the hotel, and in the middle of the night, I hear screaming in the corridor. So I think they're just kids, screaming and running around. And I open the door, look out, and this little girl is crying. And I'm like, "What's going on?" She goes, "Our friend. I don't know what's wrong with our friend." So I went. There was 2 rooms beside me, and she was having a seizure right there. So had to deal with the post-traumatic stress of the teens who
Right.
saw it happen. I mean, obviously there are teachers with them to help them out with that, but
Yeah.
that was something that was a bit unexpected. Uh, there's always a little something, but I mean,
Like people
well,
missing the bus?
no, that I
No?
wait for the people. The only time I don't wait is if we have a flight to catch.
Okay.
That's kind of
Yeah.
like the motto. And I can't take those executive decisions by myself. I have to call the office first and say, listen, we've been waiting for 45 minutes. Person's not there, not reachable. They have my phone number, but they haven't called. What do I do? And then the office decides if we leave someone behind or not.
Okay. They decide. So
Yeah.
it's not your call in the
No.
end. Okay.
No. I mean, if a customer is being rude to me on a multiple times, I can call the office and say that person, I had a conversation with them about that. They won't listen. They treat me like this. What do I do? And it's not. It happened before, not with me, that the office said, you know what? Leave him behind, and we'll contact him at the hotel room. Leave him behind. Tell him he's not welcome on the bus anymore. That never
Okay.
happened yet, but
Yeah.
it is a
Okay.
possibility.
Okay, I have two more questions and then we'll talk about the show.
All right.
So, okay, I have a little bit of a controversial question. What
Which
is,
is
if I go on this tour, right? Let's say I go on this tour, what is the tipping protocol?
all
Do
right.
people tip? Like maybe in other cultures that's not a thing. So they like what should people do?
Well, it is. I mean, for us, it's a given. We live in North America where tip is part of the culture. We know as North Americans, not to just talk about Americans themselves, but Canada, even Mexico, we
Right.
know the drill. We're used to it. Since we were kids, we were taught what is a good tip, why you tip. But you're right. French people from France, it's not in their culture to tip.
Hmm.
Sometimes they feel like because they paid an amount, everything should be included. So there is among the paperwork we give to the customers is a list of, let's say, activities that we suggest to add to the program. And there's a small portion at the bottom that tells what is tip quickly and
Right.
how should you calculate it. So obviously it's not 15% because
Right.
how do you calculate 15% of, you're not going to give me 15% of $3,000. That's way
Why
too much.
not? You're the
Well,
top
you
tour guide in
could,
North America.
you could, but
Yeah.
we try to explain to them why. Especially, it's important for them to understand why tipping exists. And there's
Yeah.
no there's no soft way to put it. It's like it's like when an anglophone asks me, how do you know if a word is feminine or masculine? How do you know? I'm like, you just know. You can't just,
Right.
a table is feminine in French, but it's not a gender, but because you grew up in it. So
Right.
for tipping, you have to start the education quite early on the trip.
Yeah.
Let's say they go to a bar or a restaurant. You have to let them know before they go. Like, people will expect a tip. If you don't tip, you're probably going to wait a long time.
Especially in the US where the minimum wage for restaurant workers is lower, much lower than it is here. They
Exactly.
basically like 80% of their salary is the tip, you know?
Exactly. Sometimes, like in New
Yeah.
York, you work at Balthazar and your wages are $5 an hour
Yeah.
because you live on your tips. So I try
Yeah.
to tell them, but what we suggest to our guests is about $5 per day per person.
Okay.
So it comes down. Let's say you leave for 14 days,
Yeah.
30, so it's about $60 a head.
Right.
Uh, and then, but some people will say, "Oh, that's cheap." Like for you and I, it would be like $60 for my guide for 2 weeks of service. That's
Yeah.
too low.
Yeah.
But for French from France, even that is, sometimes they don't understand why they should add to my salary.
Right.
And I try to tell them, like, well, the thing is with service industry is that I'm going to give you 150% of my time and my dedication, not even knowing if in the end you're going to be tipping me, pretty
Right.
much. But I won't not give you my best because I don't know if you're going to tip. It's not in the mentality.
Right.
You give your best and then you get tipped. Sometimes you get skimped, sometimes you get more.
Yeah.
Um, but they don't see it. And I'm like, well, let's say you go to a restaurant in Montreal and you get the best service of your life. And then you go to a restaurant in Paris and you're like, well, the food was great, but the service was eh. That's because the person who's not working for tips, there's no there's no reason for them to give you more service or better quality.
Right.
It's the l'incitatif. But here, people will give you their best, obviously because they want to be nice to you and good. But we all know we all work for money. We don't
Sure.
work for peanuts.
Right.
So, but it's hard for them. It's hard for
Yeah.
them. And sometimes I don't understand because the exchange between France and Quebec has been an ongoing thing for the last 50 years or so.
Yeah.
And still to this day, some of my guests are like, oh, but we have to tip. I'm like, do you not read about the countries you visit before you
Yeah.
visit? But usually it's a good deal.
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying that. That's good. Okay, so last two questions. Whether as a tour guide or traveling on your own, what's your most favorite place you've been to on planet Earth and why?
Uh I gotta say, in the tours I do in USA, there are two places that I can't wait to get to. And because I know I'm gonna get there eventually, because it's always the same circuits,
Yeah.
I get very excited on the bus knowing I'm about to be there. So I would say the first one would be San Francisco.
Okay.
I just love it there. It's very West Coast, very. I mean, you don't get the hippie vibe like that you would have gotten in the '60s, but you feel the city is not the same as the other American cities, even though it's one of the most, if not the most expensive city to live in the U.S. Um, the people there are so nice. It's small. There's less than 1 million people living in that city. So
Oh, I didn't think it was that small.
yeah, it's like
They're having some
850. I mean,
problems right now, though. They're having some problems. I don't know.
the West Coast entirely has issues
But,
with the opioids crisis, but that's
yeah.
another
The
story we
and
can
the
discuss.
homelessness is a big issue there.
Well, to be fair, towards San Francisco, back in the 50s or in the 60s, there were a lot of homeless people living on the East Coast. And
Okay.
the mayors of those cities, they didn't know what to do with their problems. So what they started to do, that's a bit sneaky, is they started a campaign where they were walking the streets asking homeless people, hey, how about we give you $200, a ticket on the bus, and you could go spend your winter in San Francisco because the weather is much nicer over there in the
I didn't know
winter.
that. That's what happened.
And so they sent busloads of homeless people that were dumped in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, and they never came back.
Right.
So there is a big issue, and not only that, the whole opioid crisis is. I mean, it's a problem even here in Canada now and on the West Coast, but over
Yeah.
there, because there's so many homeless people, the problem is exacerbated. It's even worse. But San Francisco is definitely a must. I love to go there, walking the city. It's a city you do on foot.
Yeah.
Uh, and I would say the second place, I mean, it's hard to choose. I love to go to Bryce Canyon in Utah. It's gorgeous. But I would say Venice Beach in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Venice
Yeah,
Beach.
Venice Beach is very unique. Like there's no other place like it. And if you like people watching, that's the place.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
There
the
are some
place.
characters there. But I just love it because it's LA is so crazy. It's cars bumper to bumper, smells like smog. People are rude. People are so rude. The car drivers over there, they don't care. It's cars first, pedestrians, who cares?
Yeah,
Um, but once you get to Venice Beach,
right.
and then
It all
you got the Pacific Ocean, the waves coming in, you got all the weirdos doing rollerblade and
So
dogs that are cycling.
You're a California loving person.
Well,
Because
what's not to
I
like?
love California as well because of the climate, the scenery. Like I know a lot of people from Canada go to Florida on vacation and it's yes, it's warm, but you don't have the like California has the mountains and then the ocean and it's dry heat, so it's much more
Yeah.
comfortable.
And when we
So,
drive to California, we drive the coast. We do the scenic route, so we have the ocean on our
nice.
side the whole way. I mean, I've seen whales swimming in the far distance. Uh,
Yeah.
California is very it, it's it's very different than the rest of the United States.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
like
yeah,
its
it
own
could be
little.
its own country. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
I
sure.
mean, they each could be their own country, but
Right. Okay, nice. And last question, and then we'll move to talk about your reality show. Is there any place in the world, like not necessarily as a tour guide, but on your own, any place in the world that you've been that you would just tell people, don't go there, skip it, it's a no?
uh,
There may not be. You may have liked every place you
I
went.
mean, when I travel, I don't expect much. I do research, but I don't plan this perfect idea of a trip in my mind. And I think that's an issue with people traveling on buses and organized tour, is because they made their own little version of what it's going to be like, and they forgot that it's already prepared. It's not going to.
Mm.
You won't have the free time that you want to have. Let's say you were traveling to the Grand Canyon and you wished you would have stayed overnight. We're not staying overnight. So
Right.
now you're disappointed because you feel like you had too little time at the Grand Canyon, but we have other things to do tomorrow and we have to get there. So I would say people who prepare too much in their mind what it's going to be like are bound to be disappointed at some point.
Right. So you just have to be open to seeing new places, and that maybe in the
Exactly.
future there's one or two places you might want to go back to explore it a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's what I try to do when I'm, because let's say we're in San Francisco, we have what we call on our schedule free time. Free
Hmm.
time is for the guests as well to explore the city on their own, take the bus or the cable car if they want, or go to this museum that's not on our planning. So they have free time, and it means that I have free time as well while they're on free time.
Right.
So I tend to explore other areas of the city. Let's say San Francisco, for example. I know my way around from the wharf to Union Square. I did it a couple times now. I'm very comfortable with that. I can tell my guests how to get there. But while they're walking that path, I'm going to Mission, another neighborhood further away because I've never been there yet. So I use that time to learn more about even the things that are not on the tour,
Well, yeah.
for myself. And I was surprised too. Sometimes I was like, wow, San Francisco, you turn a corner and all of a sudden it's like homelessness galore,
Mm.
but you would never see that if you kept
But then you turn
walking.
another corner and it's all luxury houses. So,
Exactly.
eh,
But yeah, uh,
okay, so cool. Okay, I don't know why questions are popping up by themselves. Okay. Uh, okay, so let's talk about the new show, right?
yeah,
Expédition Blizzard.
for sure.
So we're
Hold on.
changing locations.
I'm just going to try because my lights are all voice operated. Computer, turn dining to 100%. There we go.
Perfect.
I think you're going to see me
So
better now.
I have the 1 minute trailer of the show, so I'm gonna show it, and then, but just before I show the clip, give us a summary of what the show is about. So it's called Expédition Blizzard, Expedition Blizzard. It's mainly in French,
Yeah,
and it's on the Evasion channel, though there are episodes 1 and 2 are up for free at the moment.
yeah, yeah. Well, the concept of the show is 8 people who have pretty much no experience in winter survival, who are taking to a remote location in Canada where they don't know where it is. All they know is they're going to be doing a survival show. That's pretty much all they knew. And so we have to spend
That's all
six
you were
nights.
told? That's all you were told. You're going to do a survival show outside in the winter.
Well, the casting call we received was looking for participants who are not afraid of the cold, who want to reach or surpass their own body limits while doing introspection towards something in their own life. So it
Mm,
has a physical. Obviously, it's physical because we are doing everything you see on the show. We're physically doing it. Um, but also there's the spiritual side of it because we are on native land. There's a whole portion of the show that is aimed at finding your inner, finding a solution within yourself about something that concerns you. We each have our reasons to go there. So while we're doing the physical stuff, we are also going through the mental stuff, the spiritual journey. It's like almost like a
right.
compostelle,
Okay.
but in the cold.
Okay, so it's it's not like Survivor where it's a competition
No,
or like
exactly.
okay.
The thing that actually grabbed my attention for that is that it wasn't a competition.
Hmm.
I mean, all these survivors and the traders and all those shows, they're meant for, they're meant to be. I'm gonna try to use language, but you're supposed to be like sneaky,
Yeah.
lying, manipulative, lying to people that you're to their face, so
Yeah.
that you can get ahead. And that's not something I find. I mean, I do watch some of those shows, but it's not for me. I would not do a show like that. First of all, I would be bad at lying like that. I'm a very, very
Yeah.
bad liar. And I would feel so bad about myself, just to get ahead. So the show said no competition, no money, no prize, just pure glory. And I was like, now I'm in.
Perfect.
Now I'm in.
Okay, so let's watch the clip
Sure.
and then we'll come back and discuss some more.
All right.
So I need to share my screen. Okay. Tell me if you see it.
Yep.
Here we go.
Pendant les prochains 7 jours, vous allez être sur le territoire. À vivre. Puis survivre. Il n'y a pas de prix, il n'y a pas d'argent, il n'y a pas de système d'élimination. C'est vous autres, le territoire, et votre désir de vivre. Ici, c'est l'enfer blanc. Tout peut arriver.
La seule chose à laquelle j'ai pensé, c'est si tu ne bouges pas, tu vas mourir.
Alors quoi, je me sens embarquée.
C'est pas qu'elle est au pied, tu perds la notion du temps.
Je veux dire, qui fait ça?
Oh! En ce moment, notre abri est pas prêt. C'est complètement irrationnel.
Je sais que j'ai porté mon fardeau.
Les princesses ne devraient pas être dans le bois, les princesses devraient être dans la maison.
Son corps et son esprit est comme lâché.
Ça me fait extrêmement peur, mais j'ai extrêmement envie de le faire.
Quand tu as le goût d'abandonner, c'est quoi qui t'empêche d'abandonner?
Tum, tum, tum.
Wow. So just so everyone knows, I only like I haven't watched episode 1 because we're going to do a reaction video together and I
Sure.
want my reactions to be genuine and real. So but I'm so excited to see it. So you already explained why you did it. But I guess the first question that comes to mind is like, what's the most challenging part about that? What's the most challenging part of being in that environment?
Is it the cold? I think it is the cold.
It's really the cold.
Yeah, we shot that in Manitoba on the Lake Winnipeg, which is a huge lake. There's an island in the center called Hecla Island, which we crossed on foot. So that's about from point A to point B. We did about 40 kilometers of walking in about 6 days.
Oh,
in
wow.
the snow, in the cold.
Okay, so it wasn't all in one place. Like you traveled through the territory.
And we built
Wow.
new shelter every night going there because we need to sleep. So walk, get there, build a shelter, start a fire, eat, sleep, and get out and walk the next day again. So it's always cold. The thing is, just imagine like a day like today, -5, -10. You're walking in Montreal or in the city and you're wearing a jacket. And you're like, oh, I should have worn something a little warmer. It's a little cold. But you know you're going to get into your car in about 20 minutes, or you know you're going to get into the subway where it's going to be warm.
Right.
There, we never got inside a building or a tent in 6 days. So you're cold. You're cold. There's nothing else.
You're cold for 7 days straight. Even in your shelter, you're still cold. Okay.
Yeah. We didn't have a tent. We didn't have a sleeping bag. We didn't have lighters. We had rations that are very, very small. You'll see that in episode 1. But they took everything away from us. They opened our bag and they're like, nope.
So hold on a second. You didn't have anything to make a fire?
We had Flintstone.
Okay.
Another one.
Yeah.
That's what we had. We learned a few techniques of friction fire. You know, like this.
Right.
I used the Flintstone. It's a little hard to use, but I guess I was good at it because every single time it worked. But yeah, we had nothing. So at night we would sleep in our clothes and huddle up together close to the fire, and then
oh my God,
we'd try to sleep as much as we could. But then usually the cold would wake us up, and then we'd be waking up freezing. The only way you can warm up is by getting up, going for a jog, or doing some jumping jacks or chopping wood. During the day,
you're exhausted at the end of this week. Like this is because mentally it gets to you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably why, without spoiling anything, you'll see that the participants' patience is wearing thinner and thinner the more we advance in the adventure, because we don't sleep. We sleep maybe an hour or 2 per night. We eat very little to recreate that survival, hunger, lack of nutrients for your brain kind of situation. Obviously,
Right.
we had medics with us. You don't see them a lot right now, but then again, you'll see them more and more as the series progress because it gets harder and harder. But your brain doesn't work the same when you don't sleep like that, you don't eat well, and you're always cold.
Right.
So I think overall we did pretty good, but I mean,
Well,
we'll see with.
it's all people with very little experience in survival. So it's like it kind of makes you think what would happen one day if I don't know,
But I
the,
feel like
the whole world
tell me if
disappears.
I'm wrong, but I mean, shows like The Walking Dead or all those end of the world type of shows. When we watch them, we always wonder, would I be ready for something like that? If the zombie apocalypse started tomorrow, do I have what I need to survive? Do I have the knowledge to survive in this environment? We all wonder, as you
Yeah.
know, but this show was a way to test that theory, to see if obviously there's danger, but there's not real danger. But it's so close to realness that your body doesn't know the difference between fake and real. So but then you get to a limit in your body and you're like, oh my god, I think I reached my limit, I don't think I can do more. And if I learned anything, is that anyone is capable of more than they think if they just push it a little more. Like when
Yeah.
you think you reached your maximum limit of tolerance of anything in life, push a little further and you'll get there. And then once
Right.
you get there, you push again, keep pushing, and eventually you'll figure it out and you'll do it. But the 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 wish to quit comes in and out of your mind all the time
I was
when you're
going to
there.
ask you that. How many times did you think, look,
There was
I'm
one
going
real
home?
time, and I won't say more about it because
Yeah.
it didn't air yet, but there was one moment where I was like, this is just insane. This is insane. Why am I still here? I mean, why? And you're like, I was angry at myself because I didn't want to quit, but I was also angry at the production because I was like, why do you make it so hard? Like,
Right.
can't you just make it hard, but not the hardest ever? But that's not the goal of the show. The goal of the show is to push, push, and push.
Yeah.
So, but there was a moment where I wasn't sure. I was like, this is it. This is it.
Okay.
Can't tell you if I finished or not. You
And,
have to
well,
watch
that's
it.
it. So like I have a million questions, but I don't ask them because I don't want to spoil it. So just to tell people who are watching, if you want to watch episodes 1 and 2, I did put the link in the description of the YouTube video. So you go to that link and you can watch episodes 1 and 2 for free. And then the rest of the episodes you have to, I guess, subscribe to Evasion. Is
Yeah,
that
if you have cable at home, it's an easy add-on. You can go.
okay?
You can call. I don't know which company you're with the cable, but you can just contact them. Some of them you can also make your modifications online. You enter your account number and
Yeah.
you select the package. So the show is going to be aired for about another 8 weeks.
Okay.
So that's 2 months
Okay.
of subscription. Uh, but I like that it's Evasion that picked up the show because it's the best channel to watch that kind of show on.
Right.
If it was on another network that doesn't specialize in adventure or
For
traveling,
French language shows we're talking
yeah,
about. Yeah.
yeah,
So
uh,
let's say someone who's doesn't speak French, someone in the US or elsewhere, and visually, is there enough to go on that even if you don't understand the language in full, like you can sort of understand what's going on?
uh, I mean, overall, I would say yes because the scenery speaks for itself. So you see in which environment we're evolving, how much we're walking, and the like when we walk on the lake and you see only white everywhere, you think we're in Antarctica, but no, we're just in the middle of Lake Winnipeg and we're
It's the
walking.
middle of Canada, people.
Yeah.
It's not even the Arctic, like you're not even in the Arctic.
So, but
Okay.
I mean, it might be a little complicated for someone who doesn't have a bit of a knowledge of French, especially when it comes down to the personal interrelations of the group.
Yeah.
When we start arguing about something or we're not totally agreeing with each other and we have an argument, not necessarily a fight, but an argument about something, because it's not French from France, it's also French Quebec.
Right.
The twist is very different for people who don't speak French, who speak French from France. But I mean, just to see what humans are capable of doing if they have no other choice, it's worth it.
Absolutely. And who knows, like if enough people watch it, they might adapt it or do a version with subtitles maybe. Like that could be in the
Well,
future.
at first it was supposed to be a trans-Canadian show. They had casting calls all over Canada. But because it's a
Because the
first,
title is bilingual,
exactly.
right?
And I mean, he wasn't full on Anglophone, but Max, one of my colleagues from the show, he's from New Brunswick.
Okay.
So him and I spoke French and English throughout the whole thing. Maybe in the future episodes, you'll see subtitles when we speak in English, because for the Francophones watching, they need to have the French subtitles.
Right.
But because it was season 1 of a show that no one knew about, maybe the amount of people applying for the show was not as high as it would be for a season 2 after a show is aired. And so most of us were from Quebec. The only outsider was Max from New Brunswick. But the producers told me that they wish they could have had someone from Vancouver or BC, but there was no applications over there.
Right.
But
Well,
maybe season
it's
2.
so warm in Vancouver. They couldn't do it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
That's the
maybe.
thing.
But even the people from Manitoba, where we were there, they said it's usually cold, but the week you spend outside was probably the coldest we've had in 50 years.
Because I was gonna say, like, -50 is like it's not. I mean, I know people who don't live in Canada say it's always cold, but it's not that cold. Like
Well,
that's
the thing is,
extreme.
we are dressed like by professionals. Like we
Right.
have equipment, we have coats and scarves, and everything is very warm. And during the day when you walk and you do stuff, you don't feel the cold because you're like this,
Right.
and you're always moving, so your
So the
body's
gear they
generating
give
heat.
you is warm enough.
It is, but as soon as you stop moving and you sit
Right.
down, then you only have your own body heat to heat up this whole thing. And when that doesn't work, then you start shivering until the
Right.
next morning.
Okay.
But I think it went down. It says -50, but that's the lowest it can go. I don't think we reached those temperature. I think
Right.
our lowest was -46, but like still.
You're there. You're there. So I just want to say hi to Marjorie because she joined and she says hi in the chat. Alexandra had a question, though we did kind of mention this in the beginning, so maybe that part was missed. And she was asking, is there a winner in the end? So it's actually not a competition.
It
It's
is not a competition. There are no eliminations.
right.
So we all got there, and in mind, we all wanted to finish the whole trip, because the goal is to get from point A to point B, and doing all of these things in between. But because it is survival, it is a bit anti-survival to kick out people. If you're
Mm.
lost in the woods by yourself, your chances of surviving by yourself are very low. But as
Right.
soon as you add 1 or 2 people with you, so that's 2 more pair of hands, your chances of survival go way up. So you
Right.
don't want to survive by yourself. I mean, if you have to, you have to. But survival, I mean, humans survived the Ice Age not by splitting up.
Yeah.
They survived by grouping together to help each other go through something. So there's no
Well, that
winner.
makes the show very unique in that way. There's no
Not to say,
eliminations. There's no $1 million at the end. There's none of that. It's really about collaboration and being able to survive together.
and also survive with 7 strangers. Like,
Yeah.
it's one thing to be, let's say you're stuck with your family, your kids, your aunt, and your neighbors that are your friend. You kind of know each other already. You kind of
Yeah.
you already have a working unit of survival. You know your jobs almost. But 8 people that have never met, that are from different places, that do different things in life, and then you tell them, get along and survive. Well, I don't know
Yeah.
for you, but when I meet new people at parties, sometimes I don't get along right away. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to go hang out way over there at the party so I don't have to deal with that person that
Right.
annoys me.
Well,
Now
we
you can't.
saw at the end, towards the end of the clip that we just watched, was it you or because we can't tell who's who sometimes with the
It's hard, huh?
but someone said that the girl was being a princess and that princesses should not be in the woods. They should be at home.
Okay, that part happened, and I was sitting beside, like, there was Max, Isabel, and I around the campfire, and across from us was Cassandra, Victoria, Florent. Yeah, because at that point we were only 6. Spoilers. And we've been talking about something, and like I said, our brains don't work so good at this point. It's food deprivation, sleep deprivation. We can't really, and we blur everything out. And at one point, I'm just listening, and I'm just waiting for this specific conversation to be over with, because if I say something, nothing good's going to come out of my mouth. So I try to keep it inside and just say nothing, shut up. And then beside me, Maxime, also annoyed, just yaps it out. Princess shouldn't come in the wood. They should stay at home. And in my mind, I was like, oh, he said
But in a
it.
way, you're like, I'm glad he said it.
For sure.
Okay, so this will be really fun to watch. I'm very excited. I'm very much looking forward to it. I have a controversial question.
Okay.
How do people go to the bathroom and
It's probably the one question that people ask the most. Like
okay, good. Yeah.
astronauts when they go to school to talk about their work, and
Yeah.
kids are like, how do you go to the bathroom in space? So well, physically it's the same thing,
Yeah.
but the scenery is different. So every time we would walk to a new place where we would build a new camp, we would decide where our toilets were going to be. So toilets is a big word. It's more like a private area where
Okay.
you don't go for a walk unless you need to go for that type of walk. So we had a tarp that we hung between trees
Okay.
where you couldn't see anything from the camp. And behind it was a roll of toilet paper that we put on a branch of a tree and a bucket.
Okay.
And a bucket was where, because usually in the summertime you
So
would
it's
dig
not
a
like a
hole.
hole, like you didn't dig a hole. It was like a bucket.
It was a bucket. Well, I mean, because it is a production and it is a
Yeah.
natural preserve, so we have to respect certain rules about.
Right.
We already had different things we could not do before that we were allowed to do it, like cutting trees, hunting.
Okay.
Burning wood in this preserve is usually forbidden, but we had special agreements with the province about that. So yeah, we would do whatever we had to do in a bucket, and when we would leave, we would take the plastic bag in the bucket, tie a knot into it, take the bucket, put it back on the chariot, and then the production would get rid of the waste.
Okay.
But to go, you need to, first of all, you're wearing 5 layers
You need
of clothes.
to take off at least some of your clothes.
And your gloves are the worst, because this whole area, like your chest area and, your privates, they're always warm. They're the warmest part of your bodies. So once you put your pants down to sit on the bucket, try to keep it classy, but you don't feel the cold so much right away because your body heat is there.
Right.
But your hands, as soon as you take off the gloves to undo the buttons, to unzip your hands, within 5 or 6 seconds, they have pins and needles. It hurts.
Because you're wearing mittens. You're not wearing gloves, right?
I'm wearing mittens inside of mittens, 2 layers. So once you take it off, you try to do your buttons and do your things. But before you're even ready to go, you have to put back your mittens because your hand is freezing already.
Right.
And then you wait, and then you're like, I can't wait that much because then the rest is going to freeze. So you're like, okay, go again. And then you do the rest, and then you do it as fast as you can. And then you put it back on. But when we would walk towards that area, we'd always announce ourselves. We'd be like, "Is anyone in the toilet?" And if no one answered, we could go. But we didn't
Okay,
eat
so
that
that's
much food.
nice.
Well, we didn't eat that much food, so there
Right.
wasn't
So that
lots
was
of
going to be
toilet
my
going
next
on.
question about the food. Were you only allowed to eat the food that you were given to bring with you, or were you allowed to hunt or fish or whatever on
Well,
the site?
we didn't. We because it is a natural preserve. A lot of the rulings were out of the question. Plus, some of us had experienced hunting, but most of us didn't.
Hmm.
Plus, if we went hunting, that would have been a totally different ballgame. I didn't see any animals during the whole journey.
At
Uh,
all.
I
Okay.
mean, we saw tons of trails,
Hmm.
wolves, deer, lynx, pumas. We see them, like we see the trails, but never saw them in person. One morning we woke up and around the campfire was, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 wolves came to visit during the night. We never saw them. They were all around the camp.
I
We could
was
see
going to
them.
ask you if you heard them during the night. Okay.
Not even. They're very sneaky.
Yeah.
So the next morning we build ourselves little lance, sticky,
Okay.
sticky, sticky sticks. Um, but no, our rations were made to replicate what it would be in a survival mode. So
Okay.
basically, without spoiling too much, we had 1 potato per day per person, one sandwich bag of mincemeat, not the big sandwich bag, the small ones,
Yeah.
and white rice that we had to cook. Everything was frozen. We had to cook it. So that was for the whole day.
Okay.
So per day.
Per
Uh,
day.
yeah.
Wow.
We're always
So
hungry.
so with just that and freezing cold, everyone must have lost some weight during that
Yeah.
week.
I weighed myself when I got back to Montreal, and I had lost 9 pounds in 6 days.
Wow.
I don't know about the others. We pretty much all lost the weight, but we got it back. Mostly it was water weight,
Yeah.
because you want to drink water over there. You don't have Naya bottled water. You have to take the snow, make it melt, put it in your
So you
gourd.
even you have to melt your own water, ice water also.
Yeah. And then you have to
Wow.
drink it, because if you don't drink it within 10 minutes, it's back to ice.
It's wow. Okay. Alexandra's asking a question. I'm trying to get, okay. What did you miss the most during your time on the show?
Oh, vegetables. Vegetables. Like green, like fresh veggies.
So
Like
food is the,
by the end of the week, we're all talking about food. Even the production team, they were not allowed after 1 or 2 days on the set. They were told by the director and the assistant director, you cannot talk about food while you are around these guys. It is not nice. It is not fair. And because we heard them talk about the eggs that were overdone this morning, because they had a hotel room at night, and then
right.
we would be like, "You had eggs? You had eggs?" And so they weren't allowed to talk about food. They weren't allowed to bring their own coffee mugs on the set,
Right.
because we didn't have any coffee, no tea, no nothing. So just to see or smell the coffee would make us go crazy. It'd be like, and then we'd be like, "Can I have a sip?" And we're not allowed. So the food was a big thing. When we got to the end, we were always asking each other, "What's the first thing you're gonna eat when you get out of here? What's the first thing you're gonna eat?" Man, I
What's
was
the
like,
first
"Oh,
thing you ate?
well, I had Brussels sprouts."
That
With
wouldn't have, that would have never that would have never been my guess.
No, I was really missing vegetables, like the green
Okay.
stuff. So I
Yeah.
had Brussels sprouts and lardon.
Yeah.
But my stomach had shrank so much by then that I couldn't even finish my appetizer because my stomach was already full.
Right.
And then I had fried calamaris,
Okay.
because the everything fried is so satisfying when you're hungry.
Yes.
You're like, you could deep fry a rock if you're hungry. It's going to be the greatest rock ever.
Right.
But yeah, so I had greens and fried calamaris.
Wow. And I guess we talked about the bathroom, but I guess there's also like no way to like for people to wash themselves. Like
No,
there's
we Well, I changed my outfit once in a week. All my underlayer, just to make sure it was the driest possible for the
Yeah.
other half of the trip. I mean, we brushed our teeth because we had our toothbrush and toothpaste, but the toothpaste would be frozen in the tube every morning. So what we would do is we would take the lid off, put the tube itself into our mouth, like a good inch of it, and wait for the heat of the mouth to heat up the toothpaste in the little tube, and then we could squeeze it out.
Wow. I
So in the
never
morning,
thought of that. Yeah.
there was no soap, no, I mean, my face, like when I got to the hotel, I had to wash my face with, like I used those wet naps,
Yeah.
for makeup and stuff like that.
Yeah, wet
And
wipe.
yeah, and it took 12 for it to become clear. It was
Okay.
black.
So you didn't have any of that on you during the wow.
No,
Okay, so
no,
good. So like these are the kinds of things that that interest me because when I travel, it's like I need to know where the bathroom is. I need to, So this will be really great to see as part of the show. So everyone who's watching either live or after the live, the link is in the description below for episodes 1 and 2, and the rest will be on the channel Evasion. And other question: will there be a season 2?
Well, that's the big question right now. I was listening to Ici Première from CBC, and there was an interview with Simon Sachel, which is the director, and Sophie Durocher, and he's hoping, because Simon is also a producer on the show. It's the first time he actually produces a show he directs. He used to direct big shows like Occupation Double and a lot of big TV shows in Quebec, but it's his first gig as also a producer. So obviously, when you're a producer, not only do you put your own money in it, but you invest your ideas, and you don't invest your ideas unless you really believe in them, because you're putting out the cash.
Right.
So every producer wishes for a season 2, obviously. I guess we'll just have to wait for the ratings to see if if Evasion likes the concept, because it was a special order from them. It's not a show that was made and then proposed to a lot of people. It was ordered by Evasion. We want a show like this. Can you make it? And then so it's catered to them. But Simon was letting slip at the end of the interview on the radio that this is a concept he would like to work again, maybe in a longer format for a probable season 2. So that'd be nice. That'd be
Okay,
nice.
so stay tuned.
Yeah.
Stay
Well,
tuned.
if there's a season 2, it will be shot probably not before January 2025.
Right.
Just TV world, it's close, but it's not that close.
Yeah. And
Otherwise,
it's not a show that you want to put out in the summer.
no.
So it takes like a year for it to, because so this was filmed last winter.
Yeah,
And
February 2023.
okay.
But the thing is that it's also a Canadian show. It's an original production from Manitoba, director from Quebec, with people from all over the country. And so I don't think that they would want to shoot season 2, let's say, in Antarctica, because we have winters here that are harsh enough. We don't need to send people to Antarctica. We have all that we need here. But it's
you have
only
plenty of territories where you can do that. Yeah.
And it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful country we have. It's huge. So shooting somewhere else just for the sake of having a season 2 right away would be less interesting, because it wouldn't showcase.
Yeah, this will be Canada's show. This will be Canada's thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just before we move on to sharks, is there anything else you'd like to add regarding the show?
Well, I haven't seen the episode, so hopefully I don't come up as the asshole who's bitchy at everyone. I don't think I do, but then again, I don't know how the editing is going to be done, so please.
But normally the drama people are invited back for future seasons, so that's the way it works.
I have my share of drama, so but I guess you'll just have to watch the show to see me lose my temper once in a while. I mean, I do have a temper in real life, and my biggest fear was to look like an asshole. You know, I didn't want to be the guy that people watched on TV and say, "Oh, I hate this guy. He's so annoying." You know, I didn't want to be that guy. But at the same time, you forget the cameras are there. Like, it took 15 minutes, and I couldn't even see the cameras anymore. They're
Right.
always following you. They're in your face. They're like this close. They're talk to me, and but you don't even see them, and that's where it starts to be complicated because once you forget the cameras are there,
Yeah.
you
I
say
always wonder that about reality shows. Like people are like having arguments and there's a camera right there. So you just eventually it just becomes part of the the decor of the
yeah,
place.
yeah.
Yeah.
They went away really quickly for me. Within the first 15, 20 minutes, I was like, okay, there are cameras around, but that's not what I'm not here to do. Like, even if you're on the show, you have to forget that it's a show.
Right.
Because the goal is not to be on the show. The goal is to survive in the cold.
Right.
It
But
just so
did you
happens.
feel like any of the participants, because it is a show, did you feel like any of the participants sort of went there and played a character? You know what I mean? Like they played up or down their personality because it was a show?
See, these are the kind of questions that could get me in trouble.
Okay,
Uh,
well, if it's gonna
no,
spoil
no,
anything,
no. It's
don't say
okay.
it.
It's okay. It is a valid question,
Yeah.
obviously. But I, I don't feel like. I mean, everyone went in with a good heart.
Yeah.
Did some people want to showcase themselves more like this and less like that in front of the camera? Yes. Um, but in the end, we work together. Like I said
Yeah.
before, you
No,
don't
but
get along with
it's not
everyone.
necessarily a bad thing, right? But when we watch reality shows, we know, especially in certain reality shows, we know the people are like if you met them in real life, they would
If they're
probably
being
not be
fake,
like that.
yeah, if they're being fake or putting on a show just for the sake of putting on a show.
Right.
I feel like some people,
Yeah.
I'm not going to name names, but you probably will deduct while you watch the show.
Yeah.
I mean, some of my friends have watched the show and they told me, "Oh my god, that person that's with you, so annoying." I'm like, "Wow, you know me, so you probably know that I found them a bit annoying as well." But at the same time, who am I to, because I annoy the shit out of everyone on a regular basis. So, like, I'm sure Mr. and Madame everyone at home will be like, "Oh, that Yan dude, can't stand him. He's so, I don't like his voice. His mustache looks stupid. Why does he use these words?" So you can't please everyone. Uh, but I think overall we could have gotten a very, very dysfunctional group, but we were lucky into getting a pretty cohesive group.
Right. And at the end of
Yeah.
the day, I guess you're really like having to survive in that environment, so that takes
Well, you
precedence
can
over
you
everything
you
else.
you can't stay angry for very long because you have to
Right.
work together. So even if
Yeah.
there's an argument about something, it could be something as stupid as food or where's my potato or oh, I don't, it could be anything. At this point, we're so very, very tired that our patience is just wearing so thin. Anything can make us crack up.
Right.
Um, but in the end, the next morning, you have to work together. You have to walk and carry the shit together. You have to build the new shelter together. You have to help each other. If my shelter is done and you're having trouble with your shelter, I'm not going to hold the grudge because of something that happened this morning and let you freeze to death. I'm going to go and help you. So I
Yeah.
think it got the human beings are conflictual people or species, but when you can get over the conflict or even just pause the conflict to focus on what really matters at this moment, then you can accomplish everything. You can fix the situation between two people afterwards. But when a blizzard is coming and you have no shelter yet, there's no point in arguing about the potato. The point
Yeah.
is build the shelter all together.
Right.
So, but yeah, some people were less my type of people, let's say.
So we look forward to seeing it. Like we said before, we're gonna do a reaction video to episode 1 and maybe 2, and that'll be on your YouTube channel. And the link to Jan's YouTube channel is also in the description of the YouTube video. Now we're going to move on to diving with sharks.
Yep.
And so I'm going to show the video. Unfortunately, I can't, I have to turn off the sound because the music is commercial music and copyright and all that. But if anyone wants to see it with the music, because the music's really good. Like you choose
I try to pick
excellent music for your videos. So if you want to watch it with the music, I strongly recommend you go to Jan's channel and then rewatch it with the sound, because it's and it's a short clip. It's a 2-minute clip that I chose. It's the one of box feeding Caribbean reef shark. And so I'm gonna play it. And
well, if you're on my page, there's 2 videos. There's the box feeding, and there's also raw box feeding. RAW.
Yeah.
It's the same clip, but one has no music. So if you pick the raw edition,
I didn't know that.
There will be no music, and you'll have the ambient sound of the actual water splashing.
Oh, you have the real sound. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's called raw. Let me see. Videos.
It's like box feeding raw or something. Let me check on mine.
Let me see. I guess it's around the same time you loaded it as that one.
Probably yes.
Okay, I got it.
You got it?
Yeah, so I'm gonna play it, and so this one has no music. Okay, good. All right, so I'm just gonna turn it on.
So FYI, this is a feeding of this is shark feeding. So you'll see there's a metal box in the clip in which we put fish carcasses. There are holes in the box so that the smell would get into the water. It attracts the sharks, and they kind of know at this point that there's food in the box. So they're not really interested into us. They're more interested in what's in the box. And the person that's going to open the box is our dive master. I have a dive master's degree, but when I travel, I use another dive master who knows the area. It's like a tour guide for underwater.
Right.
So he's in charge of the box because he works with these sharks all the time. For me, I'm right behind the camera that I film with. So that's how close I got.
So it's not like you're 100 feet away and you're zooming in.
No, I'm like I'm laying flat at the bottom of the ocean, holding the camera like this.
Okay.
And I'm not moving, not a muscle.
Okay, so let's watch it. I'm gonna share it right now.
Yeah, on that day, there must have been like 25, 30 sharks around us.
A lot of sharks.
And I was very lucky because only one shark gets the fish. You see the head of the sharks, they don't fit in the box. So only one shark will get the fish. And coincidence, I'm right where I'm supposed to be to see the one shark grab the fish in its mouth. You'll see it in slow motion. Here he goes.
That's crazy.
And that's not a sound effect. That's the actual sound of the jaw closing. Yeah, I'm still laying flat on my stomach at that point because this is called a feeding frenzy. Once the sharks start to eat, they get a little crazy in their mind, and they'll probably bite on anything that's right in front of them. So
okay, first of all, whenever we see swimming with sharks, like even on the Discovery Channel and you watch Shark Week, people are in cages, there's like a whole procedure around it. You're just diving in and there's 25 sharks around you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are different species of sharks. Don't forget. So for
Sure.
cage diving, usually that'll be reserved for great whites, for tiger or bull sharks that are a bit more aggressive,
Hmm.
or even mako sharks that are very, very swift. But most sharks, they don't really care about humans. It's a misconception that all sharks are out to get us. Um, Thanks to Steven Spielberg, shark
Yeah.
has a very, very, very bad rep since the 70s. But most of the time, I mean, you were saying like you go into the ocean to swim, they're all around you. You
Mm.
just don't see them, and they don't bother you because they don't care. But some species of
But
shark,
when there is a shark attack, right? I don't think it's specifically that they're attacking humans. I think it's either curiosity or they think you're like some other type of creature, because our
well,
legs move strangely in the water.
yeah. But the thing with sharks is that they respond to certain stimuli. So any splashing in the water attracts sharks because they associate that with a animal in distress, an easy prey. So if you're in the water, um, and you see a shark and you start splashing like crazy, it's actually worse. You're
Right.
making it worse. You better stay still and face the shark. Face it. Always face it. I know it's easy to say when you're sitting in the kitchen and you're not facing a shark in the water, but splashing is one of the things you should never do. And sharks don't have hands. I mean, so the only way they can actually touch something is with their mouth or with their nose to feel like, what are you made of? You know? Most of the time, they'll take a bite, not to eat you, they'll take a bite to touch you.
Right.
And they realize right away that their teeth sank into bone right away. That's not good. That's not food for a shark. It's not fatty
Yeah.
enough. But the thing is, you're bleeding now.
Yeah.
And now the shark's second instinct kicks in. Ooh, blood. You know.
Yeah.
So it's a chain of events. But out of like 100 million sharks a year that are killed for their fins, for illegal trade, for aphrodisiac stuff, ridiculous. Only 25 shark attacks are repatriated during the year, and none of them are lethal. Most of them are non-lethal.
Right.
So there are
So,
a lot of
but when you're in the water, okay, I'm not talking about like walking through water, but when you're diving, right? There's water all around you. You can't
yes.
see what's behind you.
That's the thing. It's a 3D world in three. It's like a. You're right. That's what I. It's like space. If you're in
Yeah.
space, there's no up, there's no down, there's no
Yeah.
sideways. There's only space. Obviously, in water, there is a down, there is an up. But when you're in the middle of the water, you're right. Sharks can be coming from behind you, from in front of you, from above you, from under you. So it's really hard to keep track of all the sharks, and it's actually impossible to keep track. So you have to do your thing, keep swimming in the direction your dive master said you're going. Um, it happens sometimes that sharks are a little more curious and they come a little too close for comfort. Then it's basically a question of how comfortable are you in the water. If you want to get out at that point, you just swim slowly towards the boat and you get out. Um, but juvenile sharks will probably be more curious because they haven't encountered as many divers as
Right.
adult sharks, so they don't know what you are. But I'd rather face a shark underwater than a shark above water
Right.
because at least you can see it. You can
Yeah.
see it. The full shark, you see it. Above water, all you see is a head. You don't know how big. You don't know where the fins are. You don't know where to punch. But a shark that's coming straight at you underwater, it sees you. It,
Right.
it sees you as a huge creature because we have our fins that are about 3 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
We have our wetsuits that are like, they make us look bigger. We have the bubbles coming out of the tank. We have the metal tank that we can tap on to make a noise. So they see us also as dangerous when you're diving. They're like, ooh, this creature in front of me is 3 meters long. I'm 3 meters long. Maybe I'm not going to attack that person, because it
Right.
could be a danger for me. let's not forget the
Where
sharks.
where was the location that you in
This
that
was
specific video?
this was in Cuba, in a place called the Gardens of the Queen, Jardines de la Reina, which is
Mm-hmm.
on the southeast side of Cuba. It's a natural preserve there. Only a few divers a year, maybe 1,000, can go there to dive. So you have to book in
Okay.
advance. Costs some money because you live on the
Right.
boat for a week, but you get to swim in pristine waters. Where Fidel Castro and Jacques Cousteau used to swim together when Jacques Cousteau was still
Okay.
alive. And because of the embargo, Cubans haven't had access to the same kind of chemicals for their crops or pesticide, which
Mm-hmm.
in the end leaks into the water and kills the coral.
Yeah.
But Cuba didn't have access to that, so they always used more natural fertilizer and stuff like that. So their water is pristine clear. The coral is super healthy. The fish, because it's a preserve, there's so many sharks. I don't think I've seen under 20 sharks in any dive.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So Marjorie actually has a question, and I guess it's related to those shark diving experiences. And she's asking if there's ever been an accident in these shark diving experiences.
Not with me. I've never seen an accident or any biting or any attacks. I know they happened, but
Mm-hmm.
like I said, most of the time, shark attacks will happen to two types of people mostly: swimmers, surfers. Because you're at the surface.
Yeah.
So the shark sees you from below, and because the sun is shining on top of you, all the shark sees is a silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really see you, it doesn't see
Mm-hmm.
your eyes. It just sees something that might be a seal, something that might be a turtle. I'm just going to touch it with my mouth, you know?
Right.
So swimmers who go to swim in the ocean morning and night are more at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Surfers who surf at morning and at night are more at risk because their legs are dangling in the water all the time. There are specific times where you should avoid the water, like when the sun rises and when the sun sets.
Mm.
That's usually the time where sharks will be hunting. So they get a little closer to the
And
shore.
that's when surfers go at sunrise.
Exactly. So,
Right.
and even swimmers, so people who have who live on the side of the beach and like, oh, every morning I go for an ocean swim. I'm like, fine, but you're right in the territory of hunting sharks at that
Right.
time. They'll patrol the coast and they're hunting. That's what they do at that time. Later in the afternoon, they'll go deeper so that it gets cooler. But I've never heard anything about a scuba diver being attacked by a shark. I mean, I'm sure it happened,
Right.
but
So the
none of
fact
my
that
friends.
you're underwater is a positive thing because they're not that curious, like they see all of you and okay.
And they're scared of you. You're not meat, and they can assess that better when you're at their high level.
Right.
Plus, if you get bit by a shark, like the sharks I swam with are about 3 meters long. They're no great whites, you know, but they're still big. They could inflict pain,
Mm.
and they're very, very, very strong, very strong. But
Right.
if they get your arm, it's gonna hurt later. Apparently, you don't feel the bite. It's so sharp, you don't feel anything. You just feel a
Right.
tug. But because I have a tank on my back, at least I can do something about it. I can still breathe. If
Right.
you're swimming
Right.
and you get attacked by a shark and you get pulled under, no tank, well, then you drown.
Right.
At least with the tank, I have an extra layer of protection. I can breathe while I'm dealing with the situation, which I
Yeah.
hope is never going to happen.
No. So
No.
aside, have you been other shark diving in other locations?
I've been looking for some sharks in. We went to another place in Cuba, my cousin and I, and we were looking for tiger sharks.
Okay.
These are more aggressive, but we had professional dive masters with us who were like, okay, so you're going to follow our lead. If the sharks show up, you stay there, you listen to what we say because they are more aggressive. Um, but we didn't see them that day. We looked for them. In Thailand, I was looking for whale sharks, and I guess it was because I was beginning to dive. Every single day, a boat would come back to the shore and say, "We saw a whale shark," And I was like, where? At that point, I'm like, we were just there this morning and we didn't see any. So I'm
Right.
still waiting on my first whale shark, which apparently is very impressive, about 30 feet long.
Yeah.
Biggest fish in the ocean. Because it is
I
a fish,
saw
it's not a
I
whale.
saw a video of a travel channel that I follow called Cara and Nate. Really cool. They went to off the coast of Australia and they went swimming with whales, but
Yeah,
gigantic whales. And that was impressive. Like, it's not a
yeah. I
shark,
mean,
but it's maybe even more scary because it's so huge.
I've seen my first whale this year. I was in Tadoussac, and believe me not, I had never seen a whale in my entire life. And so we saw a couple of humpback, we saw a blue whale, and we saw what do you call them? Rorqual commun, which is the second largest species after
Oh,
the
you
blue
were
whale.
lucky. You saw a lot because I was in Tadoussac 2 years ago, and literally there was like one little white whale so far away, and
Oh,
that's
like a
all. That's
beluga
all we
whale.
saw. And the
Yeah,
rest of the time, I was just freezing.
yeah. I mean, one day I wish I'm blessed
Yeah.
with a humpback or a whale passing by while we're diving. But there are strict rules about diving or swimming with whales
Yeah.
because they are considered higher being. Uh, you're not supposed to. How could I say it? You're not supposed to harass them. So
Right.
let's say you're on a diving boat and you're going blah blah blah, and then you see whales. You're not allowed to stop the boat. Well, I mean, you can stop the boat, but you're not allowed to put on your gear and jump in the water
Yeah.
because that would be annoying to them. Like they came to you, they didn't say you could go to them. You know.
And
But
that
if
video that I saw is exactly that. They waited until the whales stuck around for about an hour before going in. Because
uh
the whales know there's people in the boat. Like
oh yeah,
they know.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you'll see sometimes in videos whales that are asking for help, and you're like, what do you need? And then the baby whale takes the boat to the mama whale, and the mama whale is stuck in a net, and then
Ah,
divers go in. They're very smart. They're very
yeah.
very smart, which is a, I mean, they're most likely smarter than us emotionally. You don't see
Hmm.
whales going around trying to conquer the world. Uh, but I wish one day I'm in a dive. Let's say I go to Hawaii next year because working on the West Coast is one of my goals to go to Hawaii also.
Yeah.
From there, it's very close. And I know there's a moment during the year where they go to give birth to their calves, or they stay there for a while until the calves is strong enough to go into the ocean. So there are specific times, but I feel like if it happens because the whale wanted to check you out, it's even
Yeah.
better. It's even better because the whale chose to come to you, you know?
Right.
And
So
don't get
let's
me
say,
wrong, they're very dangerous animals too, huh?
oh, for sure.
Oh, they give you a snap of their tail and you're knocked out and you die.
That's it.
So they're peaceful, but they can kill you with one swift tail movement.
Yeah. So, okay, let's say shark diving. I decide, okay, tomorrow I'm going. Okay, I'm
Okay.
not. I'm not. It's a hard no. But let's say I decide, and obviously, let's say I already know how to scuba dive. So I know how to
Okay.
scuba dive and I want to go shark diving. Is there anything else? Are there requirements? Like, do you have to have a certain level of experience? Like, what are the requirements?
Well, like you said, first of all, you need to be certified. If you don't have your certification for scuba diving, you can always do the cage thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to Australia and you want to see great white sharks from up close, you don't
But you're
need to
still
know.
scuba diving.
No,
Mm.
sometimes you just get into the cage. The cage is afloat at the surface,
With snorkel gear.
and just a mask and a wetsuit, or not even.
Okay.
And then you lower yourself into the cage, and if
Mhm.
you need air, you go to the surface because the cage isn't lowered at the bottom; it's still
Right.
floating at the top. So that's
Mhm.
one way to do it. Otherwise, you probably would need to do your advanced diving course though, because sharks,
Okay.
they don't hang out at 15 meters; they hang out at 30 meters and 40 meters. So
Okay.
in order to go where the shark is, you need to be certified to go to that depth.
Okay.
So, but usually it's an add-on course. So let's say you're already PADI certified, you take your advanced class, within a weekend, you're certified to go deeper. It's a lot of chemistry and physics with the air, the compressed air, the depth, the nitrogen. You don't want to get the bends. It seems like a lot of information, but once you take the class, it makes sense. But because you're going to go deeper than with the regular certification, you need to understand better the physics. So the second course is basically the same as the first, but you do your math differently to calculate your bottom time versus your resting time on the boat. So once you get those two things, sharks are pretty much everywhere.
Right.
There are sharks in pretty much all the waters of the world. Obviously, the Keys, if you don't want to go too far, you can go to Florida. The Keys are a great place for shark diving. The water is a little more murky sometimes, so could be a little scary for someone who's never dived with a shark to just already be in murky water, because sometimes you see a fish and you see it only when it's in your face. For shark, it's a little different. You'd like to see it from, a little longer way.
So I guess in that respect, what I'm saying is, even if you have your certifications for scuba diving, you want to have done scuba diving enough times that you don't have to worry about the technicalities and you can actually focus on the experience.
I think so too. And they're I mean, sharks are one thing, and it's not to say that because you're going on a regular dive that you won't see a shark. Like I said, they're everywhere. So you might be going to see this area with your dive master for a specific type of fish that hangs out there. There might be a shark passing by. There might not be also, or they might pass by. You won't even see them because they didn't care, But you're right. If you're going to put yourself in a situation where you might be scared of a creature, you don't want to be scared of diving on top of being scared of a creature.
Right.
So doing a few dives here and there that are more simple, that are more peaceful, less. I mean, they're always exciting, but like a little puffer fish will not eat your arm. So even if you're scared of fish, the puffer fish is this big. Chances are he's not gonna get into trouble with you. Sharks are different. Even me on the first dive, I saw my first sharks, and I was holding my BCD, my vest like this, so that my hands wouldn't be flapping around, and I was just like counting the sharks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's useless. They're moving all the time in 3 dimensions. But I remember the first dive, I was so scared, and it's my first dive of 15 during the week. So if I'm scared at the first dive, why did I spend $5,000 coming here?
Right.
But you get used to it.
So in 1 week, you do that many dives?
I did. We do 3 a day.
Okay.
Or 4 sometimes, but 4 is pushing it. But 3 a day is an average. Some resorts will offer you 2 dives, 2 tanks per day. Usually resorts, when you go on land, let's say you go to Mexico or you go to Cuba, you go to a dive shop, they'll always offer 2 tank dives. So you do your first dive at, let's say, 45 meter. You come back on the boat, you have your lunch, little break, because you need to decompress. You need to let your nitrogen in your bloodstream lower before you get back into the water. And then you do a shallower dive because you still have nitrogen in your system. You didn't pump it all out. So you're not going to go as deep on the second dive. And if you do a third dive, you're not going to go as deep as the second dive.
Okay. I didn't know that.
You start very deep and you move up so that you don't poison yourself with nitrogen. But yeah, 15 dives a week. If you're doing a scuba trip, I mean, you don't have to do 15. Like I'm a scuba diver, and if I travel, that's what I do. So I book packages. But if you have your cards, if you have your certification, you could always, go on a trip with your family and say, on one day of the trip, I want to go scuba dive. You have your certification? Go for it. It's a nice addition to traveling.
So for anyone who takes cruises, because I like Royal Caribbean, on Royal Caribbean, on the ships, they do the PADI certifications.
Yeah,
so
and a course.
If you want an extra activity.
A course is about 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
if you do it intensive. So it's not something you want to take on a 1 week vacation because you're going to spend the week in a classroom.
Well,
I
yeah,
I took my course in Thailand when I was there for 2 months. I
yeah.
knew I had all the time in the world. So I was like, well, I'm here for 2 months. I can take 5 days in a classroom to learn scuba diving in Thailand, you
Mm-hmm.
know? But for most people who leave only for a week or 10 days, it's better if you take your course here in Canada or wherever you are. You
Yeah.
take the school portion in the classroom, or you do the e-course. You do it online. You do your exam, which is a written exam to see what you retained, and then you have pool sessions. Most dive center will rent a pool somewhere in a
Mm-hmm.
school or somewhere, and then you can practice your techniques in the pool before going. And then once you're in the Caribbean, let's say, you have 3/4 of your class that is finished. You have an equivalence. You show that to the Patty Dive Center over there, and they'll complete your training with the 5 dives you're supposed to do.
Oh, okay. So
So
this
you,
is standard across the world. It's pretty
when you
much,
do it, there's Patty, which is the American version of
yeah.
the certification. There are also SSI, which is a European version.
Mhm.
But here in North America, mostly it's going to be Patty.
Okay.
Yeah,
So interesting. So, Jan, we went through so much.
I know,
We went from bus tours in the West Coast to well, not the Arctic, but Manitoba, and now the
And now
Caribbean.
the
So,
Caribbeans, yeah.
I don't
So
know if
like,
there's anything else you'd like to add for people.
well, just I mean, because I know you give advice to people who are thinking about traveling here and there. If
Hmm.
I don't think I really answered your question from the beginning, but I'll just do it quickly. When you say, what should people know when they want to book a tour, like organized tour?
Hmm.
You know, first of all, like I said, read the brochure. Make sure you know what you're signing, because there are small prints everywhere. Second
Hmm.
of all, if you want to see the world on your own, travel on your own. You
Right.
know, don't book a tour with 50 people, and then once you're on the spot, say, well, I want to do this today, I don't want to go there, why do we have to leave so early, instead of we could have done this. I'm like, this is an organized tour. You know, people book it because they want to get organized. So
Mm.
once you're there, trust your tour guide. He knows the distances. He knows why we're doing it this way. Just don't be selfish. There are other
Mm.
people on the bus, and they all want to have an experience. Like, or just book a different kind of trip. That's what I would say is, like, before you book an organized tour, make sure this is what you want. You know,
Mhm.
you're gonna get to see a ton of stuff, but there are going to be rules. There are going to be limits, and late people are the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Punctuality. Well, when you
yeah.
have 50 people that have to follow a sequence and a schedule, it's
Like,
yeah.
if I lose 5 minutes in the morning because two people were late, and we leave 10 minutes late, and then in the afternoon after lunch, they eat too slow, and I'm like, at 2 o'clock we need to be back on the bus, but at 2:15 we're back on the bus. That's already 25 minutes of the day that I
Mhm.
can't get back. So it either means we're gonna cut 25 minutes in Grand Canyon, or that we're gonna be 25 minutes late to the restaurant, or that we're going to be even later to something else that we have tickets for.
Right.
You know, so be respectful of others when you're on the bus tour, and trust the tour guide. When the tour guide says you have to be on the bus at 2, please be on the bus at 5 to 2.
Right.
Yeah, because a tour guide that's on time is already a late tour guide.
Yeah. And tip your tour guide.
Yeah, well, any type of guide, even if you're in Montreal and you have like a tour guide for the afternoon, tips is always welcome. We
Yeah.
live off of tips, so but we are passionate, so tipping also ensures that only the most passionate people will have the job. Um, I mean, we would do it even without the tip, most likely, but not for very long because we couldn't pay our bills.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Jan. It was all very interesting, entertaining. Alexandra's comment that the shark video was the highlight.
Oh yeah, well there are more on the on the page.
Go
Though.
on his channel, you'll see tons of videos like that, and they're not too long, so they're like fun to watch, like one
Yeah, I
after the
try to
other.
edit short because who
Yeah,
wants to watch a 15-minute video?
yeah.
No one.
So
Right, and then we'll maybe do our. I'll get the. I'll see if I can get the approval from the production company to do a reaction video.
a reaction video, that would be really cool. Like, I don't know if you watch, there's some reality shows I watch that they then re-show the episode with the people reacting to the show. So
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe they want to publish that too.
Yeah,
So
or maybe
okay, so
I'll try to get some other people from the cast.
that's cool. Yeah. So
Great,
we'll be in touch for that. Thank you so much.
my pleasure.
And have a great evening, everybody.
Cool, and click and subscribe to her channel. Click, smash the button.
And subscribe to his channel. All right. Bye.
All right, hey, take care, Melissa. It was fun.
You too.
Bye bye.